we're starting a little bit early because I already see comments and I am trying to make sure I have everything set right. You hear me? Yes, I'm assuming. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Hello, Mama Bear. Jinxie. Let me go back up here and see. Oh, wow. Let me go all the way to the top. Polygraph. Good evening. Mama Bear, like I said that, didn't I say that? Yeah. And Aries Fire, hello. Shane Considine or Considine? Somebody have to tell me. Welcome. You followed Jinx. Well, welcome. Aaron Town. Is it what time is it for you, Aaron? Is it late? You might be on a different time zone. Fur Baby Daddy, hello. Carol Stanhope, hello. SRB. Whoop whoop. All right, let me make sure I've said CJ. Hey, when I get done here, I'm going to try to hop in your chat later. If y'all have not subscribed to the Evil CJ show, what are you doing? Um, CJ, I don't mind if you put your link up here. Nomad63, hey. All right, I think no, I think I'm caught up. All right. Well, we have a special guest tonight, and as you know, we're going to be talking about uh, it's a really rough topic. So, before we get into the deep discussion, I just wanted to say I hope you all had a very great holiday, and I hope that you're having a great day. I start working, my long work week starts tomorrow. So, uh, yeah, yeehaw. All right. And I am just waiting for Justice. Oh my goodness. I think that's her. Justice?
Hello.
Okay, everybody tell me, can you hear Justice?
Good evening, everyone. Testing.
She's arrived.
Wow, I feel like a Disney princess with that music.
I love it. There's some really cool sound effects in here. Not that I really know what I'm doing, but so how are you, Justice?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. Thank you for inviting me over.
Oh, well, thanks for coming because, I, I guess it's just, I feel bad. I don't do enough of the subject that we're talking about. And I thought, gee, what a great topic. And I wanted to let you know, I did watch, I don't think I finished it, but your last video with the CSAM survivor, wow. Wow.
Yeah, that it was a
So,
very powerful show, and after meeting her, it took many conversations and stuff with her to hear about her story and to make sure that, when she was ready and, she had first shared about the case and she's like, I don't mind you seeing this information and to read a case like that, unredacted is is hard to do. It's really really hard to do. So, just trying to prep the presentation for it, took me a couple of days because it was
yeah.
emotional. I mean, I would cry sometimes on the phone with her or, cry while I was reading through some of it because to hear this happening to kids, it just absolutely breaks my heart.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And I think, I guess it's we always think it's an other place, other person problem. So, I mean, and that's what I really want to focus on is, educate us on this. Hold on just a second. Let me check up with the chat. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. I need a mouse. This is not good. Okay. Oh, y'all heard the doorbell. Good, 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 good. I'm so excited. It's like a brand new toy here. Hello, Frank Meister. All right. Okay, Justice, before we start on her story, I want to ask you, not to dox yourself, but tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up here. Like, what made you go in this direction?
Well, I started my interest in true crime and mysteries really because of my mother. And she was very much into it. And, started out as I believe most of us may, which was all with the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew mystery
Yeah,
books
I
and those
remember
types of
those.
things. And once I got through with those, I started reading her Agatha Christie books and stuff like that. And, I just had a really, big interest with that because she did. And then we had an experience that when I was young on Halloween night on 1981, we had a girl in our neighborhood who on Halloween night was reported missing. And her body was found the next morning. And when her body was found, me and my mother were driving over the bridge that they located her body. And that case happening in 1981 really affected me a great deal. They still have not found who murdered that girl, although I do have my own suspicions. I did a show on her. Her name was Deborah Fulton. She was from Hammond, Indiana. She was 16 years old. She was on her way to a roller skating rink on that night, which was a very popular skating rink. It was a skating rink I went to myself with my sisters, and and her case sat here forever, just unsolved. And I started
Wow.
with that, and then that same year, 1981, was also when Adam Walsh ended up disappearing.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
and you got to think that's before we had obviously internet or anything like that, but also
Hmm.
there was just no way that nationwide a alert would go out back then. So, but I remember it being on the news because it caught a lot of attention because of the case and what was going on from that. So, from that, I had a really big interest, and basically, I ended up, retired here early from things that I do for a living. But I decided, and my mom had passed away a few years ago, and there was an article that came out, and ironically, it came out on her birthday for an update about Deborah Fulton. And, you know, when that came out, I thought that was kind of a sign of mom to be
Yeah.
like, hey, I'd really like you to do that. Of course, the encouragement of some friends that I met through the Delphi case. It's not really doxing. I'm pretty open that I am out of Indiana. And yeah, I've been back and forth throughout here. I was a military brat, so I haven't lived here my whole life, but I was when I was younger, and then ended up coming back here. Uh, and at the time, I followed a lot of Delphi with other YouTube true crime people, where I met some other lovely ladies, Mama Bear and uh, and Kelt and Paige and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
at the time, we were, there were, I know this will be shocking. There was a lot of drama going on back then. with some of it.
back then?
And yeah, it was, way back then. I know this is shocking.
Oh, wow.
So, we just didn't like that and we didn't get into it. So, um, they were encouraging of going, you know what? We think you should go do your own show. So I blame them if you guys don't like me and you don't like, hey, that's all their fault. They're the ones who encouraged me to it. And I told them about the Deborah Fulton case. So that was really why I got into it. I have a huge compassion for children. You'll see a lot of my cases are unsolved cases from that. Serial killers that we've had in Indiana. And then obviously my deep dive into the CSAM and looking more into child trafficking and things that are going on within the state of Indiana really started because of Delphi and the connection between Keegan Klein and the Anthony Shots profile. So,
Yeah. And I know you're going to tell us a lot about that. I actually heard you on, I think it was CJ's show. It's been months ago now, but yeah, you told me some stuff that was really scary. So I talked to my daughter about it. Yeah, I didn't know that you had that that incident in your past. So yeah, I can see where you would really be. I know I would be if something like that happened, in my neighborhood or my area. So, wow.
yeah, it makes
Um,
you feel vulnerable as a kid because
oh,
basically the bridge was down not far towards the end of the block that I lived on at the time. So when me and my mom left to go shopping, the police were right there because it was right near a middle school. The middle school was right there near the bridge. And I show that if anybody ever wants to go see that, you can go see the that particular case that I talk about and show everything. But to go by there and to see that the police are there finding a girl's body. I mean, she was older than me, obviously, but she it makes you feel very vulnerable as a kid, very scared as a kid.
no, sure.
To think that because Halloween night, I mean, back then it's kind of like the E.T. movie, if you ever watch it on Halloween, that all the neighborhoods all over the place trick or treating, right?
Yeah,
That's what you
right.
did. All parents would
Mhm.
go out, you're all over. And so, yeah, so it just made you feel very vulnerable and scared about that. So,
Yeah. Wow. So you basically grew up in Indiana or lived there for a long time. If you were a kid there, and so you're very familiar, I guess now, especially with the trafficking, CSAM, or whatever. Um, how long ago was it that you first really started looking into what was going on around you?
well, I do have daughters. So obviously, as a parent, to be aware of something like that, and I used to volunteer for a lot of stuff. I mean, I was a scout leader, all that kind of stuff as well. Excuse me. So, and I only came from sisters as well. So girl power was a big thing to protect girls and what was going on. So, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. Doesn't want to go away. But the stuff about people who would try to contact girls on their phones and stuff, kind of at the hype of all the social media, I was kind of aware of it, but not as in depth and as bad as it was. But when I started to see the information about the Delphi case, the one thing that I felt back then at the time that a lot of people weren't diving into was really deeply diving into the CSAM, how predators
Hmm.
work, how they get in contact with your kids, and and the dangers that can build up from that. How easily that the dangers and stuff build from that. And then as I dived even deeper into that, at the time there was also information that came out, and a lot of people missed it. If you didn't weren't paying attention right then at the time, you wouldn't have known it. And it was about the app called Yellow App. And
Right.
Yellow App was very last minute brought up, not till April of 2022, that suddenly the police then asked if you've had contact with an Anthony Shots profile through Yellow App, please contact us. And that was the stint of it. It was just briefly brought up. It was briefly brought up on all the news stations locally, and then nothing else. It didn't expand
Hmm.
anything. So I went and did a lot of research on that company who started it and about this app that seems it was perfectly set up for honestly for pedophiles to use to watch children. And so that's why I did a thing on that. And also, if that app was actually what was used to track the girls by the Anthony Shots profile.
So was it?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't think they brought that up in April of 2022 for no reason.
No, yeah.
And you know the big part of that is that it is not a stretch that this app that was created in France and was being used here, and it started in 2015, and they brought it here to promote it here in the States. And with that app, basically, kids can be on this app, and they call it a Tinder for teens, and it's
Yeah.
promoted as a meet up with strangers for your kids.
Right.
And
Right.
so supposedly the ages were supposed to be from 14 to 25, which by itself, those ages are horrific to think you're letting those communicate. The problem is that you could be 11, 12, 13, and this app itself would actually change your age to be the 14 that it required for you to be. And then also, if you are an older man and you're trying to get on there, if you're in your late 20s, your 30s, 50s, 60, whatever, you can lie because there is no verification, and you can put whatever
Wow.
avatar you want to up there as your picture. And
Right.
then suddenly you say, I want to meet friends, and you can do a search that would say, find me girls who are 50 miles away from me, 100 miles away from me, in the state of Indiana, in the United States, in France, in whatever you wanted to, whatever you wanted to. But the scary part of it doing the local search is that then this person would know these are girls who are on this site.
Mm-hmm.
And unbeknownst to them, it also automatically would connect with your Snapchat and Instagram.
Wow.
And that is why it could locate where these girls are.
Wow.
So
Wow.
now you have a predator who is watching your kid on videos that they could be talking to other friends or whatever,
Gosh.
and communicating with them, and they don't know it's a grown man, and they don't know that he knows exactly where they are.
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you, when I heard you on CJ's show talking about this app, when the show was over, I immediately went to my daughter, who she's nearly grown now. We'll just put it that way. And I was like, "Oh my god, have you ever heard of this app?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Whatever you do, do not download that app." And she's like, "Mom, I've been using that app for years." But I don't think she understood. And I had a come apart mama freak out, yelling, screaming. Yeah. But she says that she never met anybody but people that she knew from school, like people her own age that went to schools around here. and maybe she was just lucky, but I had no idea. I had no idea that there was something that could show your location. Now, I knew on Snapchat, I had always, made sure that her Snapchat had location services off. But, that is scary. I
Yeah.
mean, because, it looked the app was, well, the yellow one was yellow. It looked like a fun app.
Right, right. And that's where they do it. They try to make it seem inclusive. Now, obviously it still exists. They renamed it to Yubu. They
Mm-hmm.
changed it to Yubu when it came over to the United States, but they really didn't change a lot of items and stuff from it. And it was very weird that, it was this app that is created by this company that the only thing that this company did in France was create this app. That is their one and only. And the odd thing about it is they don't make money. And I have a whole video on the background of Yellow App if anybody wants to see all the details and the proof of it. And heck, you can go look it up yourself. But they don't sell ads. So what their moneymaker was that you could sit here. Now remember the ages that they're trying to say are going to be joining this application. But they're saying that, okay, well, you can buy stuff that will help you advertise your profile out there more to people and can
Mm-hmm.
spread out more in front of kids, right? It's going to be out there for more people you can meet. So think about this. You have a teenage Anthony Shots, maybe, who's going out there, who's sitting here, and now it's in front of more people and it can find more people and it could do different things. It could also allow you to watch videos of kids all yapping and stuff together without them knowing that you're there.
No way.
So 13-year-olds
Oh
olds
my
aren't paying
God.
the money for this, right, guys? It's a free app. So they're not paying. So who do you think is paying to watch this?
Oh yeah.
So, and oddly, at the
Oh
time when I went
geez.
to look into this, when they announced this on the news locally, and said about Anthony Shots profile and about the Yellow App, the other thing that they indicated is that the police were heading to France. So we heard nothing else about that. Well, I found that interesting. And the reason I did is because I found out that the Yellow slash Yubu now opened a headquarters in Florida and had opened a headquarters in New York.
Wow.
Now, they had also where they had capital, that was a capital campaign that did millions and millions of dollars that people were contributing to this app. And you have to wonder why. Who is giving all of this money for this app? Because it's expanding, and they were trying to expand into the US and then in South America. And while we were
Wow.
looking into this, I'm sitting here going, okay, it keeps saying that it works directly with NetMec now and works with all this stuff. Well, when I did investigation, they weren't working with NetMec. They donated money to NetMec. And that's a huge difference that you have somebody helping you monitor from NetMec versus
Mm-hmm.
doing that. So, and why do you need all of these so-called employees at one location versus the other? And so when we did a little bit more deep dive about it, then we saw that the supposed headquarters in Florida was just being run by a husband and wife couple in Florida. And there
What?
was no actual company placement that was there, correct? And so, and that made me ask another question. If there's a headquarters in New York and there's a headquarters in Florida, then why did the Indiana police have to go to France?
Hmm.
Why would they have to go to France? So, I'm sure they were looking for wherever the servers are being held and kept, for they could get information. I also did an update on the Yellow app that really talked about that now of their very little cooperation with other countries and authorities if you wanted something done. And it actually says that on their website. You have to email them
Wow.
And information, and you have to, deal with, them responding, and then if it's, if it's going to be a certain way, then the actual police have to contact them and have to prove that it's somehow an emergency, and then then that has to go through their police and an email starts to send. They make it just horrific to be able to deal with them. So that's where back then I was like, okay, there's something with this yellow app, and that's why I wanted to do investigation on that. And it coming out of France and a possible connection to something dealing with, in my opinion, that I believe a CSAM ring potentially here and other locations is because we've had an international child
Hmm.
pedophile ring, CSAM ring, that was busted and has been busted in Indiana. And it not only stemmed one operation, but it stemmed two separate operations in Indiana for CSAM. So it's not a new
Right.
thing. So, and that fact, the reason that, the comment that made me really think, hey, I need to look into this further was just like I showed you on that slide where it shows the guy he's talking to Keegan Klein, and he tells him, from your Dropbox account, from your phone, we have started one of the largest child pornography investigations ever undertaken in the state of Indiana. Well, then I was like, holy crap, guys, because we've had an international ring busted here,
Wow.
you know? So
That's so
that,
scary.
yeah, and that's what really I was like, okay, I need to look further and stuff into this. So,
And Justice, I know you sent me some links and some pictures. So when you want something, just let me know because I've got them all loaded up in here.
okay, okay. So let's see, we already talked about that one. So, yeah, if you want to do the second one, the one that shows the state of Indiana, um,
Okay. Are we talking about a news article or just the pictures?
just the videotaped statement of Keegan Klein.
Uh,
So there's the one slide I was talking
okay.
about. It would be the next one after that we
Okay.
had.
Let me
But I can
see.
see it beautifully. It's beautiful.
Oh, good. Well, I hope I can figure out. Oh, wait. There we go. Is it this?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I sent a bunch of clips and slides. God love her. The Silky's probably like, "Oh my God, how much crap are you reading?" But I took some snapshots of some of the videos and things like that I did. But this one, just for me, I'm just this way. I just like to try and show sources of information that I'm not just pulling
Sure.
stuff out my butt, right?
Yeah.
So this is where the statement is during the interview on August 19th of 2020 when they finally arrested Keegan Klein. And so he's being arrested already. So this isn't a made up, we can lie to you because we want you to confess. He's being arrested for it. So,
Hmm.
and this is where the actual statement comes from of stating that it will bring up the largest pedo ring in Indiana. So, which, was pretty crappy.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and then the next slide, I believe here.
I've got this one. Is this
Yep,
what you're looking for?
yep.
Okay.
So that this one it's really starting to go into and talk about the national petty ring that was busted here. And so and if you guys want the full detail of the full giant whole thing with everybody's names and everybody's stuff, I've got the video over there. But so basically they had an investigation that started in 2008, and the investigation actually started from a man that they had info on from Alabama. And so the Alabama gentleman then leads to a gentleman in Boston.
Hmm.
And so as this continues, they end up basically finding a ring that had 1,500 members across the world. Across the
Wow.
world. And basically, these members were just everywhere. And they had a hierarchy of how this group worked. You could only join the group by invitation. You had to be vetted by a high up person. And these people would basically, and this is where I'll highlight some similarities to Delphi, I believe, in my opinion, is that
Okay.
people also only know each other by screen names.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't go on there saying, hey, I'm Tim from Tennessee. And, they don't have to provide that stuff. They don't want to provide that. That is part of the advantage that they have with this group because that's part of it. We will keep you secret. So these 1,500 members, we can open that next article if you want to.
Okay.
These 1,500 members were found to have millions, and I'm not misquoting here. They would have, oh, there was a news link. That's okay.
Okay,
This,
which one?
it
Let's see.
was, let's see, go back up.
Cuz I've got a whole bunch.
I know you
Is
do.
this is there
Uh,
this one?
Local channel 13 one, if you
Yes,
click
this
on
is
that.
it. Yeah. Can you
So,
see this one?
so if you open that article, not yet.
Hmm. It's showing on my side.
Um, oh, can you guys see it out there? I don't know. I can see that your screen looks like it's having something to the right, but I can't see anything.
Huh. Okay. Well,
Well, and if it doesn't, we're okay. We're still okay.
we're just like
It's okay.
I I
Um,
I want to tell you, I had, and I didn't have, it didn't come across great in the player, so I will leave this link. But I actually, I read this whole article and I screen recorded it to my phone.
yeah.
This was crazy. What that guy said, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And the thing, I did a bunch of stuff of what each of those guys were busted for, and it is so disgusting. I mean, the big thing is that they sat here and had this 2-year investigation that started, and then it explained to you what the hierarchy was of these guys. So there was a Delwyn Savagar, and he was the head person. He is the person who started this website link, and he is from England. This man himself was abusing 3 children that he was arrested for in Leland, right?
Mhm.
So that's what he was getting charged for. But he had extradition orders that when he would be done serving that time, he would be. Uh oh, I hear echo of myself.
No, that was me. I was trying to
Okay,
see. It's not. Yeah, the picture's not coming up on live either.
that's okay. That's all right. We're all
I have
right.
no idea why. Okay.
But that so he started this and he ran. He is the head, what they call like the senior administrator of the group. And so it was a password protected website. So, and again, invitation only, you had to be vetted. They're going to give you a link to a website, and you can't even get into the website until you enter this special password that's going to be given to you. So, and the hierarchy of the members, you sit here and you have like varying degrees of access based on CSAM. And you have to send CSAM in order for you to be a member. You have to show you are into CSAM, and you have to send it in order to be a part of it and in order to get it. And then the more serious your CSAM is in the group, the higher up ranks you become in their anarchy of the group itself. So Savagar in England was the root administrator. So he is the rank from that. And then it would descend basically after that. So there was like an administrator, then they called, which was just a regular administrator. Then they'd have a moderator. Then they'd have what they called the Grand Master, and then they'd have trusted members. And so
Wow.
based on that anarchy was what you could do, what you could access, and what you could see. And this discussion between these guys is unbelievably horrific. I mean,
Disgusting.
what
Yes.
they would have, um, it's amazing of that somebody would do that. Now, one of the second administrators that they caught here in the U.S. was because of the guy that they found out about in Alabama, and then they went and found a guy who was gone by a name called Mayor Roger. And Mayor Roger was out of Baltimore, Maryland, and he literally was a candidate for the to be a Baltimore mayor. So that's why he wanted people to call him Mayor Roger. And but
Wow.
Mayor Roger was also an administrator, so he was that next tier down from the head guy in England. So once they busted him, they were really going all over the place at that point to find out. So, and again, all the info and stuff from this you can find online. I've got the thing with all these guys' names. But so when they started doing it, they found an administrator in Nevada and in Florida. And then as they continued to find these different levels of people, it was Louisiana, Illinois, California, Georgia, Pennsylvania, United Kingdom, um, South Carolina, Massachusetts, Indiana, and Missouri. And then when you think that, okay, my God, look at all these people across the United States. Well, they also then found the connections were in France, Germany, Asia, Africa, South America, Australia, the Netherlands, Canada, and Chile. So when you find a guy who has CSAM and they're sharing with anybody, it's not just one guy. You
Yeah.
have to understand when you bust somebody who has CSAM, and what do we know about Keegan Klein?
Yeah.
I would like to point out to everybody that Keegan Klein's charges that he's up against right now are only for the images of the CSAM that he has from girls that he communicated with in Indiana. So if you look at all of the those sites, which when I go through what was found on all his phones, I have the actual all the towns that he
Hmm.
was sitting here looking at, and all of these towns are not far driving distance from him. The farthest was Indianapolis, which is about an hour and a half, and then Hammond, which about the same. And those girls, the reason I say that those are local charges because they're not federal. Now,
Okay.
federal charges can still happen to you. And federal charges can still happen to you because if you send these or take these or travel with these on a USB drive or via email and you send them out of state,
Hmm.
or if the victim is out of state, you are now going to be facing federal charges. In my opinion, I believe more charges are going to end up dropping for him. And right now, it is just the state charges that they're handling right now, because
So,
I think they're holding on to that. And it,
okay. So you think they're really looking for bigger fish than
oh,
Kagan?
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. And remember, when you go through the information about the evidence against him, which I do on each of those phones, if you go and you look at that, when I go through it, one of the descriptions, though, that they do say was that he and another person were going back and forth sending an image of a 3-year old girl.
Oh my God.
Now, Keegan
Oh
Klein tells the
God.
police that that's not him, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
not looking at that. To be honest with you, I kind of have a suspicion that could be true, only for the fact, in my opinion, that I think that Keegan Klein, because, he didn't graduate from high school, he
Mm-hmm.
didn't continue out through that. And I think his thing and his mindset and his maturity level may have him still stuck in that place. But if he's sitting here and he's running part of a group or a low level, which I can't imagine him being high level of anything, but for him being a low level person who is dealing in a CSAM group, the higher level people are going to be looking at those images that are younger kids. Now,
Right.
when I think of his father, TK, right? When I
Mm-hmm.
think of him, in my opinion, he could be that because he fits more of the profile of somebody who's been abusive to women, abusive to children, abusive to animals. And when he was a teenager, he was already doing peeping Tom activities. And
Yeah, I can't figure out why has he not been arrested for something. I mean,
his family could, when I have a video called "Why Tony Klein Was Not Arrested," and
I need to watch that one.
yes. And one of the reasons too, I'm going to throw this out there, is also because I tracked back that he has more than 7 generations from that town. They all stem from that town. There is a big background. So they know everybody in that town. They know everybody around that small little area.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about going back that far, it could be that he's sitting here and it's like, oh, he was doing this, and oh, but we know his dad, right? We know Tony Klein's dad or Tony Klein's grandfather. And so, oh, they'll take care of it. They'll make sure he stays out of trouble, blah, 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 blah. That type of thing. And, also when you talk about, a former girlfriend of his who says how he's out there also with a friend in a truck with him
Hmm.
watching her daughter, that
Yeah.
makes it a little bit scarier too. So it makes me curious if that type of younger type of victim
Yeah.
and kids in there, you've got somebody who they're very much more sadistic
Hmm.
in what kind of stuff that they look at, and they just progressively continue, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and so that it trends to go to then, when do they get to the point that they no longer are looking but they actually are trying to you know hurt someone.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a slippery slope. People usually, at least, I've heard a lot of people uh, who had former problems in this area, not necessarily with children, but just with pornography in general. And, it starts, I don't want to say innocently, but it starts small. And, before you know it, they're, snowballing down the hill. And so I imagine that that's how these people get into it, unless they were raised in a home that, unfortunately, some people are exposed to that very, very early.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and you have the reason that CSAM is on a rise. And the reason that it ended up on a rise, first of all, is because with COVID,
Oh, yeah.
lots of these kids ended up on the internet and spending much, much time on their computers because they had to do homework. They had to sit in the classroom. They had to do all of
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. And so suddenly they're also communicating with their friends and they're using these apps. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, if you're wondering, yes, of course, I tell you about the Yellow app, who I know directly that these you would want to avoid and not have your kids on. But if you want to ask me what app is safe, I'm going to tell you right now, none of them.
Right.
None of
That's
them.
true.
Because you have to be monitoring what communications and stuff are going on, because these guys, I did a read a paper from a study that was done by a forensic computer science gentleman who works with the Internet Crimes Against Children task force groups. And while I'm looking through all of this stuff, these guys turn around and they specifically go like and look at any regular app or online when your kids are actually like playing video games, right? They're playing
Mm-hmm.
video games online, which lots of kids do. When they're sitting here and they're in any regular type of app, like one group that I saw that he investigated and was doing was one that went to teens who had trouble with anorexia, teens that had were in groups for that their parents are getting divorced, all kinds of
Wow.
very specific type of apps that they would go to. So they're going to go to any app that they know children are on. They're going to talk to these kids. And then while they're talking to these kids, they're also going to be asking them to then later, as they build up this relationship with them, to move over to the Kick app, to move over to the Snapchat, to move over to those types of things. And because of that, they're going to take their time. They're not going on there and talking to your kid one day and then asking your kid to do that. They're going to invest time in with your kid. The other reason they do that is because they want your kid to lead them to other kids. So
Right.
if they go, okay, wow, I'm a friend with somebody on this app, on a, let's say Facebook, and then you see and Silky comes and somebody goes and asks Silky, hey, I want to be your friend, and you haven't heard of this person, but you know that, you know Justice Serve Daly's friends with them. Oh, and Jinx is friends with them, and Mama Bear's friends with them. So
Mm-hmm.
what do? You're like, oh, that person must be okay. This kid must be okay because they're friends with these other people that I know of. And so they do that to expand, to see, who they can end up getting to be to be progressing in the direction that they want to try to start sending them images, to start
Mm-hmm.
talking to them, some of them to meet them. It's no longer the creep that's in a van driving in your neighborhood and pulling your daughter off a bike or pulling your son from
Right.
delivering newspapers. They are in your house by your kids' cell phones and by your kids' computers. And you have got to watch everything that they are on. And honestly, what age you finally give them a phone? I mean, they start begging for phones pretty early. But I think,
Yeah.
because of safety reasons, you really have to watch, when you finally decide to give them that and explain to them it's not because I don't trust you, but it is because there are people who will do this, and you need to be honest with your kids about there's going to be
Yes.
people that are pretending that they're children, that they're your age, and they're trying to talk to you, and they're predators.
Yeah, now that's something I did talk to my daughter about because, um, without going into too much history, I really was forced to get her a phone early on. And that is because she, twice while she was at her dad's. Now, I'm not saying her dad is a horrific person, he's doing great now, but he went through a very, very bad few years. And twice the police called me in the middle of the night when she was on visitation to come and get her. Well, after the second time, I'm like, you're getting a phone because I want you to be able to call and text me the minute something starts happening. I don't want the police calling me. And so, she was, I don't know, she was pretty young. I can't even remember how old she was. But that was one of the things that I talked to her about early on over and over is you can't trust anybody. These people can say always have your location off, which I was trying to go through her phone and do that. But then, I always told her don't be friends with somebody if you can't verify who they are, and I told her about these sick old men, and even not old men, but a lot older than her, what they would do. And we had that very uncomfortable conversation. And I'm like, I just want you to know, you know? So if you're talking to somebody, you better see them live on video, FaceTime, whatever you're doing, because it's scary. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes parents get their children phones too young, and then sometimes you don't really have a choice.
Right, right. And as far as the CSAM and stuff in there, because I saw somebody comment, and I apologize that my memory's that short. Um, Talking about that this happened before computers. Absolutely. This stuff happened. If you watch, and I have been meaning forever to do I want to do a show called the evolution of a child predator, right? Talking about way back in the day when they would kidnap kids and stuff. And I don't know if any of you guys are familiar um, about I thought it was a very great mini series which was called Children of the Snow. And if you haven't watched it, I'm not sure who shows it anymore. I think I watched it on Hulu if I remember. But that was about kidnapping and captivity of four young kids in the suburbs of Detroit. And it linked to basically CSAM, and they would kidnap the kids, they would take the photos and stuff, and then they would murder the children. The children would be found. And
Wow.
that connected to an island in Michigan to a very multimillionaire man who, when they started busting some of these guys from the group, he flew and left the country. Never found him, never caught him. And that's what's scary about like this international ring that I'm telling you about. There are guys in here they didn't catch. And the reason that this is so connected, you're probably like, okay, JSD, why, how does this connect and stuff in Indiana? What does this mean and stuff from Indiana? Well, I'll tell you, because guess where the computer servers were kept for this international child petty ring that was started in England? The two servers were in Indiana.
No way.
Yes, they were.
Wow.
The computer servers were here. So
Wow.
so when they sat here and they, geography means nothing, everybody. Geography means
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Somebody can be looking at an image that they get of your child anywhere in the world. And these and let me say, girls and boys. If you've watched, the FBI has done a huge warning about that is now happening more and more so to boys. And I would say and I'm sure you guys all know it because look at the case that many of these CSAM guys who get busted, they don't just have a profile of them as a boy. They have themselves also
Oh,
as a
yeah.
girl. And
Mm-hmm.
they have it as a girl because they want images of that boy. And then after they send the images, they sit here and then have sextortion. They commit on them by saying, hey, you send more to me, or I'm going to tell your parents. I'm going to send this to your friends, your high school. I'm going to publish this here, and this is why this is going to happen. And so, boys are also the victim of this. So, please don't just be checking your daughter's phones and computers. You need to also be watching the communication and stuff with your son. And again, have the same straightforward conversation and stuff with them,
Mm-hmm.
about that. And so, again, these were 1,500 people on just that one site. And once the people started getting wind that they were in there, all of a sudden, boom, 1,000 people dropped out of this website. They were that when they were going and continuing making arrests, dropped down to 500. Now, why do they say that happened? That's said because most of these CSAM guys have multiple websites or apps or whatever that they're using. And so if one goes down and gets busted, they shut that down and they go to the next one. They have another one. So they have a background
Oh,
of
yeah.
in case
Yeah.
something happens. But
Exactly.
but these two servers though that were found in Indiana, they sat here and talked about other people that they never found in this group here in Indiana. The two of the people in Indiana they never found because they never could identify them other than their screen names.
Wow. That's
So
so scary.
it is, and then you wonder where they still are. Now, I will warn you guys that some of these people that and again, I go through all the names of the ones that I looked into on my video about it. Some of these people are already out of jail, everyone. Some
Oh
of
my
these
gosh.
people are already out of jail. Now, this particular international child petty ring that I'm talking about, this particular one was called Operation Nest Egg. Okay. Now, the thing was that makes it even scarier is that while they were investigating this, they suddenly find a man who is connected into this same group as well, but he was from Bloomington, Indiana. And this man, his name was David Bostic, a young man. And in 2002, it opened a whole nother CSAM operation called Operation Bulldog. And the reason that it
Is
did
that
it,
what you gave me a is that the one that you gave me a link
I think
to?
so. I think I had, yeah,
Let me
sorry,
see if
I
I
was
can
just
find
going
that.
on.
Yeah, let
Yes,
me see if
I
I
think
can
I sent
find
you the
that.
argue, the article on that one. But yes. Oh, I can see that that's up.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the other one. I made a new. Can you see? I don't know why it's doing two. Okay, let me get rid of this one.
Yeah, the THR, that's the first one.
Yeah,
And
I had put it up. You were now do you can y'all see that one? Can you see it, Justice?
I don't see it up here yet. No.
Okay. I don't
But
know.
this David, I'll just yap while you looking.
Yeah,
Uh David Bostic, the thing about him, this guy from Bloomington, Indiana,
there we go.
he sat here, and the reason he opened up his whole own thing is because one, the highest thing that they try to go after is not only the guys who are looking at this, but also the higher ups who are producing this. And David Bostic in Bloomington, Indiana, was a producer of child pornography against infants and toddlers.
Oh
And
my
it
god.
was not just of the pornography thing, but also there was torture involved. So when they found him, he had opened up its a whole nother second operation, stemmed here from Indiana, this whole second one, okay? Operation Bulldog, and it busted guys in California. They found five guys in California, and it continued as a whole nother separate operation. And they had to go in there, and that's why you hear when these things get busted that they are saving children because they find out either who they're around or if people they're their own
Mhm.
people's children or whatever. They save them from this continuing of abuse and it continuing of doing that. And this guy had lots of people that he allowed in his own site. So here he is participating in the one from England, right? The Operation Nest Egg, that
Mhm.
group on their website. And then he has his own group of his own people who are following them. And his also led not just again across the United States, but across the world also.
Wow. You know, if I ever go to jail, if I ever crack up and go to jail, Justice, it's going to be on one of these child predators. I mean,
Oh,
I
I
know
know.
places.
I'm
I'm
just
rural.
looking. I'm looking for my well-fitting, like Batman vigilante kind of outfit, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I got to be able to move and kick pretty well and stuff like that. But I hear you because this
Well,
stuff
there's
makes
a
me
go
so
ahead.
angry.
Yes, and there's a lot of pig farms around here. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yep.
Somebody just goes missing. Who knows?
Yep.
I just wanted to say real quick to Carol Stanhope, I know you have mentioned a little bit to me before about some of the stuff that you went through, and I don't know if you ever want to talk about it. Um, if you ever want to come on and talk about it, or if you want to email me, whatever. I know she has some very interesting stuff. And I don't know if it would be good for you to talk, if it would make you, feel better or worse. I'm not, definitely don't want to, you know, drag up stuff that you don't want to think about, but sometimes it's good to get it out. I think I put that, Justice, I put that Operation Bulldog up. Now, what is this other one that we've got? Um, we've got, what is this one? It's Feds arrest 50 in bust of child porn ring. And this is from CBS News. And I think
All
this
right.
is 2010. And I think
This
Nomad's,
that's Operation Nest Egg. That's
oh,
Operation Nest
okay.
Egg. So
Oh, okay.
that's the first one. And here's what's sad, guys. Okay, so this by our so there is most of the state of Indiana is covered by the Southern District of Indiana Department of Justice, who does the federal cases. So most of the state, part of the northern part of the state, not that they won't do cases and stuff like that, but most of the investigation will come from Illinois. And the reason I share that with you is because remember when the warrants and stuff were written to like go look at Ron Logan's house or to go look at all of that, who was it that were coming down? These were feds that were from Illinois. They were out of Chicago.
Oh,
And that's the
wow.
reason why, because the other ones are in there. Well, at the time that Operation Nest Egg was busted, that was the largest pornography bust in US history back then. And let me tell you, these cases aren't over quickly because they kept searching and searching for more people that it connected to. The last arrest that they did for Operation Nest Egg was in 2016.
Oh,
So
wow. So
you're
that was
talking
way after this.
right, absolutely, because they keep moving and going to see anything in there. The other reason also that they can catch people and that they caught Operation Nest Egg is because when they busted the mayor from Maryland guy, they went in there and what they'll do is they get access to that person's password and account for they can go in there and they can see the names and follow it and then try to go from that way to try to search these guys out. And they have to have a lot of evidence from that. And every time they find something, that's kind of like the stuff with Keegan.
Hmm.
Why did they go to Keegan Klein's house? They went to Keegan Klein's house because of the report that came from NetMec from the girl who shared her address with the Anthony Shots profile. She comes home from school. She
Mm-hmm.
sits here and sees a man wearing a mask outside her bedroom, looking in her bedroom window. So they call the police. She's scared to death by it. And then when the police come, that's when she shares that this Anthony Shots was trying to get images. And that's why that warrant was written. What did they have to do? First, they had to go find out who the hell that person was. So
Mm-hmm.
they went to Snapchat and Instagram. They wrote for them to get the information from them. Okay, you have to provide it. They provided it. They said who the IP address was. It was owned by a Comcast account. Then they had to go write the warrant in order to get it from Comcast. Then Comcast sits there, has to answer to the warrant, gets the IP address. They link it to the client's home. Well, then you go, why was Tony never arrested? I have a whole freaking video on this because one day it finally hit me in the head. And I'm like, oh my God. You know why? Because when they walked in the door, they asked Tony when he answered. They read both their rights. And he said to him, hey, we're sitting here tracking. Is this Comcast account yours? Yes. Is this a secure account? Yes. Okay, well, do you have Instagram and Snapchat? No, I don't. My son does. So the police
Mm.
go over to Keegan. They tell him, do you have this and this? Yes. Grab all your devices and let's go. They were looking for a man who was doing that. They weren't looking for two men in the same house who would be
Ah.
using the same account. So they leave with those devices, except the sixth one, right? The one he leaves behind in the microwave, supposedly. And so, which would have had all the info. And honest to God, if they would have looked to make sure it was there, I feel like we could have ended this case a long time ago. But they turn around, they have the other devices, they search the devices, and Keegan Klein admittedly is like, yes, yes, these are mine. Yes, I did it. And then, of course, then they let him go home for 3 years, right?
Hmm.
So you're like, what the hell? I mean, trust me, everybody in Indiana was like, what the hell? How did this happen? Why did
Right.
why did we wait till 2020 to arrest him? Even he was shocked. He asked that same damn question when he got arrested. Why did it take 3 years? I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty pathetic. And then,
Yeah.
and then I would, my point of that is that they never took any device from Tony. They never asked if both of them had access to it. They automatically let him say, I don't have Snapchat and stuff. He didn't have to because he could sit there and look at whatever he wanted to. I don't think Keegan Klein needed 6 devices,
No.
you know?
But and here's the thing, just like, and I know CJ's been covering the Henrietta, Oklahoma case a whole lot. And, how many devices did they find there? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a crazy amount.
Yep.
Um, and, it's funny because I just, on my YouTube channel, my personal, viewing one, I just came across a story, and if anybody's interested, I'll find it in my history and try to put it on the bottom of this video. But I watched this kid. He starts out when he's like 15. Long story short, he gets involved with a child predator. He wants to expose him. It's been almost 3 years. He it's like an hour long video of everything that he goes through, tracks this guy down in Pennsylvania, calls his work and reports all this stuff, calls the police, and he does get fired from his job. But when he actually goes, so nothing is happening. He gives all of his information to, I guess, state or federal investigators.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got video, he's got logs and logs of, chat from Omegle and from, I don't know, different places. I can't remember. And when he finally confronts the guy, and the guy says, oh well, you can't investigate me, I'm already under investigation. But come to find out, even with all of that information, the police just did nothing. So afterwards he finds out the case was opened again, probably because it's had like a gazillion views on YouTube, and probably because people are calling Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and saying, what the crap? You know,
Right.
this guy is obviously
Right.
guilty, and
It
y'all
takes
just let
it
him live here.
it takes so much of the evidence and stuff to get them. That's like in the CSAM survivor I spoke to, the guy who was busted did finally got busted because they did have that chat step he was using, right? That was a chat step.
Hmm.
It was also like a website app thing you could click to. These guys were chatting in the room, they were sharing stuff, they all used the same stuff. They used Skype to record videos, like the same similar trademark of sites that they were using is the same that you heard about on Keegan Klein's phones. But when they found it, so they had the report from NetMech that about the chap step, it was about a totally different person. And so, the CSAM survivor that I spoke to, she was like, she suddenly saw that he was being arrested in the news, and then saw that he was being arrested because of the photographs he was taking. And that made her go, oh, oh my God, he took photos of me, he took photos of this. So she finally builds up enough courage to call and to tell them, which at first she wants to stay anonymous, but they have to have the victim, right? They have to have the victims be able to say that it happened. And so when she did, IMPD was already making a plea deal with him that he was only going to serve 3 years for what they caught. But here's what's shocking, guys. Those tapes, they had VHS tapes, they had USB drives, they had camera pictures, they had all of this stuff of her and the other victims she basically came forward and said who was also that she knew and identified. And they weren't charging him with any of that. They were only charging him with the recent NetMech report. So after she makes the phone call and talks to the internet crimes against children and tells them this and identifies and stuff like that. The day that he went to show up in court, that he thinks he's going to walk because he was out on bond. He was out on bond. And so he comes back to court thinking he's just going to get this deal, and they arrest him. And they arrest him finally because they talked to her, they talked to other victims, and then they had to go back, go over to the IMPD headquarters, grab the videos, bring the videos back to watch them, and go, oh my God, here they are. Here these four girls are.
Mm.
And it was just not going to be charged. It was not going to be charged. And so, I mean, so that's the other thing. It's not just them catching them with it, but they have to identify the victims and stuff too.
Yeah.
Well, that's what could delay it. And here's the big question I ended up having, and I don't know if you guys caught on to this or not. So the murder sheet interviewed the girlfriend that Keegan Klein was with when he was arrested, right? Now, mind you, she was only 16 back in 2017 when he was communicating with her. She was also a minor. He was talking to her at the same time that he would have been talking to Libby as Anthony Shots, right? So she was also underage. She tells the police when it hit 2017 that, well, he kind of lost contact with her. He wasn't really contact. Well, right, because that's when his house got raided. That's when they
Yeah.
found all the CSAM. So of course he's not talking to her. So when it finally reached 2019, she hits 18. He communicates with her. They move in together. They're living together 2019, 2020. What does she share? She sits here and tells that she goes and he only had an Xbox, a old laptop computer, and his cell phone. And he did not want her touching that cell phone. So one day she gets a hold of that cell phone. And what app does she find on that cell phone? A Dropbox. She opens the Dropbox and she finds nude images of girls in there, one of them being her girlfriend that she
Wow.
knew. So, riddle me this. Why is he not facing charges for the Dropbox images he had in 2019 and 2020 that was on his phone when they arrested him? They were still there. He had no heads up about that. She reported that to the police. And my guess is we are going to see more charges for him, and I
Mm.
think they'll be hitting federal charges, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, normally I would say there's a plan. I mean, if it were any other place, I'd say there's a plan, there's a reason they haven't done this. But I mean, we're talking about Indiana. So, and we're talking about the Delphi, and when it comes to that, I really just don't know. I don't know sometimes who to believe. I hope they have a plan. I hope that there is something bigger. Um, it worries me though, because I just started looking up. Oh, I don't know, a month or so ago, like different officials who have been busted for, let's just say, being sexually inappropriate. A lot of, now it's not just Indiana for sure, it's everywhere, but a very large number of people in Indiana, cops, firemen, um, something to do with public service, have been busted, arrested, lost their jobs for sexual favors or CSAM or something like that. And I'm like, you know, you have to feel somewhat safe, don't you, in your job, that you're not going to get caught or you're not going to go to jail or, you know?
Oh yeah, and the spread of where these people are. I mean, the other thing, and we all know this, that what people normally don't get busted from this. That that when I talk about the evolution of predators, you talk about the Detroit, the Michigan case and these kids and all that stuff they find out and how huge it was. I mean, you couldn't believe how big that was. And then you go up to an Epstein. right?
Yeah.
And you get to an Epstein, and guess who isn't going to get busted, everybody? The powerful and the rich. We all know that.
Oh
It is
yeah.
always it is always going to be the low-hanging fruit, which we can
Mhm.
all agree Keegan Klein is the low of the hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I mean, he is, going to be a person who maybe had some, maybe shared some, maybe whatever, but he's not going to be a hierarchy of some type of group like that.
You're right.
So for him to sit here and have all of those images and stuff like that, before he went into court, I did a video, one of my videos, like, I just feel like he's not going to sit here and take the charges for his dad. And I'll be damned if that's exactly what happened, because it was like, it opened his eyes of, okay,
Mhm.
daddy's not talking to me anymore. He's not sending me money anymore. And I go look at these charges, and I'm suddenly seeing that, somebody, and he called it out exactly what charges weren't his. He said about the one for Skype, using Skype.
Yeah.
And while you're talking to somebody, you do a recording. They don't realize you're recording the Skype, especially if it's a kid. And they turn around and they keep those videos, and they show those videos and stuff to people, and saying that he was using his own account. So, suddenly the Keegan, who was not willing to get his dad in trouble only for CSAM, that he was going to take all of it. Hey,
Mhm.
if dad's not giving me any money, I'm not going to go serve 145 years because dad
Yeah.
was looking at some of this stuff.
Well, I mean, I just highlighted that they um she 2000 says I can't believe he's isn't taking his dad's charges. But, I guess there comes a point where who's going to put money on his commissary? But I honestly, and this is just me, I think that Kagan, for all his faults, and I mean, we know he's guilty of CSAM and all the and soliciting and all this stuff, but it seems to me that in his, you know, talks with the investigators, he's been fairly open and honest. Um, I don't think anybody wants to tell 100% the truth if you're guilty, but he has admitted to a lot of things. I mean, I've watched a lot of uh, interrogations or investigations where people just lie. They just lie like the devil. But Kagan has been, yeah, I did that. No, I didn't do that. So I mean, it gives him a small amount of credibility, I guess, for
Well, but
criminals.
but here's my thing. Why was that phone? Why was it current phone the phone he couldn't find? Why was the
Yeah.
current phone that he would have been talking as Anthony Shots to Libby or whomever
Hmm.
in there? And remember, all of these communication, all these charges that he's got were girls who were close by. They were very close by, that not
Right.
only driving distance from where he was, but they had a lot of relatives that are in Indiana that live in those same communities that he was talking to. And so, obviously he's not telling everything from that because he doesn't want to admit
Right.
that he was meeting up with any girl, period, whatsoever.
But do you think he was really meeting up, or do you think he was the guy behind the computer? Because, I mean, on any, okay, I'm not trying to be mean, but let's be honest. If you're looking at a profile of Anthony Shots or anybody that looks even close, can Kagan show up? No. I mean, daylight and dark. So it makes me wonder if he was really just the voice behind the messages and the
But you got to
gatherer.
remember, what was the intention of the visit?
Hmm.
If you're doing catfishing and you have an image like that you think, one thing that they share is the technique that works. And if that image and the Anthony Shots name gets girls to go meet somebody, whether they're going to be, whether it's they're sexually assaulted, whether it's they're kidnapped, whether they're whatever the intention is going to be,
Hmm.
they're just the ploy is to use that to get them there. and
Right.
and and obviously, I mean, obviously, also the biggest ploy on a CSAM is get them to send you something. They think it's this guy, get them to send you something. But if it is set up to meet you, then there you go. And here's the thing. I don't, you know, could he just be he set up, remember, he didn't set up Anthony Shots until July of 2016. He
Mm-hmm.
had been communicating as himself with all of these girls, getting stuff from them. So why did he suddenly decide in 2016 he needed to create this fake profile of Anthony Shots? You know?
Oh yeah, I think it was definitely like but I think it was more of not just him and his dad. I think it was more of a ring thing, and I think there was a lot of people involved. I just don't think Kagan was planning to go out there to the bridge himself that day.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't see him physically. I mean, it's rough terrain. I don't see him going out there, but certainly catfishing somebody to go uh, and then, there's been a lot of questions about what other girls, family and friends were in that same circle of people he was messaging to.
Right.
Big question.
Well, and here's the thing about that though. He had met up with a girl in a park before that, and now I'm trying to remember, oh my God, where I had that stuff info from. But he had tried to meet a girl in the park before as himself, and he got pissed because that girl brought a girlfriend with her and made the comment about hurting her because of her bringing a friend with her instead.
Wow.
I'll send you that
Yeah,
because
I haven't
I'm
seen
not going to
that.
throw something out there. Another yes, because I was like, well, holy crap, that opens a door right there. You know what I mean? Of okay,
Mm-hmm.
was it something was he upset here that somebody brought? I mean, obviously, we've got the Richard Allen uh, in custody and stuff like that. Easily they
Mm-hmm.
could sit here. I'll bring you up something that I picked up on. They talked about that Keegan Klein during his interview. He told them that, you know, that he sat here and he didn't know Richard Allen. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know Richard Allen, and they were saying, "Oh, but when he lived down the street from Richard Allen," and he says, "Well, I would have only been 10 years old when that happened." Well, the denial of saying you didn't know him and then you were only 10 means to me that even heightens just the possibility of him knowing Tony. Because if you're only 10 and a kid living in a house down the street from
Mm-hmm.
Richard Allen, and those communities are so small next to each other, guys. I mean, it's like nothing to drive from one to the other. It's not like a big town or whatever. It takes
Right.
20 minutes and you're suddenly in this town or the next town or whatever. So, and those schools are like, kind of like that arch rival football team, right? That you go
Mm-hmm.
play and stuff against each other. That's exactly what
Yeah.
those are. So people will hang out and know each other, and one school would date the other school, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah. It's hard to say on that, but I mean, you are talking about a small town. On one hand, I would say I only know two or three of my neighbors, um, but and we're a lot closer than that. But on the other hand, if you are a younger person or you're online a lot and you are in chat rooms and stuff and you're looking, you're gonna find somebody.
right, right,
Um,
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
I don't go looking for that. So tell me then, what, how do we, as, people, humans that care, like, what can we do? Is there anything? I mean, other than we talked about educating our kids and, making sure that they understand what they should and shouldn't do. And
Sure, sure. Can you pull up that last photo that I sent to you? Your
yeah,
last one.
let me,
So, from learning about these networks and groups, and also sitting here and talking to victims of CSAM. It's the one from, yeah, not that one.
not that one.
Nope.
Oh, wait, here we go.
There we go. So, the biggest thing is for kids to feel comfortable to speak up.
Hmm.
One, you have to make sure that the kids understand that if something happened or if they said sent something to somebody by mistake, that you're not blaming them. They have to feel comfortable to be able to talk. If not, they need to have an adult that they feel comfortable to talk to. If you have seen something that you think also is CSAM or somebody has CSAM, one, I will let you know, even if your child has received it. Do not have them send that to anybody. Don't even have them send it to you. If they do that, then that is transporting CSAM. Doesn't matter who you're sending it to. Even if you called the cops, they will not let you send the CSAM to them that way because
Hmm.
that means you're transporting and distributing. So
Right.
you want to use either National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. It's the cybertipline.org. There is an actual form that somebody can fill out from there, or 1-800 the lost. You will speak to a person. They would go through that information and stuff with the child. Even if they're being harassed, even if they have somebody who is trying to communicate with them as an adult, no matter what from that, turn that tip in. Make sure your kids know about this. I'll tell you, there is a group when I did a video called Dangers of Social Media. And there's a social group in there who, when I went to go look, one of the things I was shocked by is some of the groups will share uh, like very dangerous apps. And I could not find at the time anybody except one site that was really even saying about Yellow app and even Yubu. And I want to make sure to say the one. Oh, I want to make sure I say the right one. Um, I'm looking for this. Hold on. And so the big thing that you want to make sure is you're watching the phones, communicating with your kids. Let them know tell them straightforward the honesty of it that there are predators who disguise themselves as kids and will talk to them whether they disguise themselves or boys or girls, so it doesn't even matter. If they don't know them, do not accept
Hmm.
the contact with them at all.
Yeah.
So
Well, geez, I'm like that as an adult on my Facebook. Now Instagram, like for Silky, Southern, it's different, but I don't talk to I don't talk to strangers. But on my Facebook, like I will not accept a friend request now. And here's the thing: I'm in a position that I know a lot of people, or a lot of people know me in the area, and so I don't really know them. But if we don't have mutual, and I say trustworthy friends, okay, these are good people, not my, fringe, crazy friends. Um, that's the only way I'll accept their friend request is, I got to kind of know you. Like if I know you from church, or, or you think you know me because we have these mutual friends. Yeah. But that's not always safe either.
right, right. So I found it. So the site is called smartsocial.com. They also have a YouTube page. I have used some of their videos and stuff that will talk about it, but they have a great piece that when you go in there, it ranks different apps and the level of the safety of those apps for you.
Okay, I'm going to type this in. You said smart social,
Smartsocial.com.
social.com. So I'll let the uh, people know.
Yeah.
I'm going to put
So
that in the
so that's
comments.
also that is a great site also too. But again, I don't want to obviously it'll tell you about whether it deletes comments, whether it takes stuff away. They have a lot of program stuff that are also for schools.
Hmm.
And ever since brought up about the dangers of social media and about the smartsocial.com, they have some things that are supposed to be used for schools. So does NetMec, by the way, that can use to educate for schools. And I have heard from so many people that their schools are not doing any education for kids about social media and that type of thing. And so
Yeah.
you can be the advocate for your school, find out from them, do they do education to children about social media dangers. And please don't just rely on that, but I would encourage that, right? I would encourage
Right.
you to find that out, and I would encourage you to then have the discussion with your kid, let them know about the NetMech, because then, tell them if they know a friend who's being bothered by somebody through social media, or is even, they don't have to send anything. If they're being asked to, tell them to tell their friend to call 1-800 The Lost, or go to the NetMech at the cybertipline.org. Do that. And just be very honest with your kids and let them know, you know what, this is happening stuff. If you have a friend who's doing it and and they're telling you, or you've done something, please feel free to call me. It's not your fault. These are adults who are grooming them and targeting
Mm-hmm.
them, and it is not their fault. Um, so I mean, that was the big thing with the young lady that I spoke to, from the CSAM survivor from an index
Right.
predator. I mean, she did well, because I'll tell you, at the very beginning, she was very much, when we first started talking, and even the Internet Crimes Against Children detective that she worked with said the same thing, where she would just constantly blame herself. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, why did I do this? I mean, he was giving her alcohol. He was buying tickets to football games, guys, and that way she had a ticket to show her parents, and I'm using air quotes here, that she went to the game, but actually he
Yeah.
picked her up and he took her back to her house. And so they are trying to do, they encourage them from keeping secrets from their parents. And you, girls or boys, you gotta warn your kids. You
Yeah.
gotta protect your kids. And I've made a mission that the rest of my breathing days here, I am so going to be all over these son of a guns, and I
Mm-hmm.
am going to be telling people who they are, who they get busted, what they got busted for. I did one of my CSAM videos, and a lady the next day told me I had to take a screenshot of it because one of the guys you showed me was friends with my dad, friends with our family, and we
Mm-hmm.
did not know that he was busted for that kind of thing.
Right, right. And,
So,
this came up. I can't remember if it was you were saying it or if it was somebody else. Maybe it was CJ saying it. But, you can get on your local, your town, your county, and you can look up. Now, these are only people, the problem is these are only people
convicted.
that have, yeah, the convicted. And they're bad enough. But if you just look at who the sexual predators are, you can map them from where you're at on the, they're a mile, they're half a mile, they're across the street, and that is I think the very least. My
Yeah.
my kids used to think I was a nut job for getting online and looking at the predators, but when they were younger, I'm like, I need to know if somebody
Well,
moves in the neighborhood.
there was a guy, we just had a big, huge grip. There's another operation the feds just did that I'm working on now to cover, to tell everybody about. This one busted a person in every state in the United States. So I'm working on that one now, and that's huge. So
Yeah.
I've been doing that one for a while. But the other thing is that we had a guy, though, recently arrested here. He was a convicted sex offender. He also had CSAM and stuff like that. He was a registered sex offender from California who moved to Indiana and never registered.
Wow.
So that's the other thing. These are only the guys who register, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these are only the guys who are convicted, that have already come through. And you got to worry about that some of these guys, the CSAM victim I spoke to, he had a charge like 20 years earlier for sexual abuse of his own daughter, but they pled it down to a misdemeanor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to show up. It's not going to show up. And that's the other thing. I want to be a part, and I call my people, my justice warriors, of to try to look into the laws locally. Our laws are not protecting our kids enough by age of them on there. We need to do one, at least work on your local representatives for them to change the law in your
Mm-hmm.
state, but also we need to work on federal laws that are protecting our kids. For one, a foreign country person should not be able to create an app that they don't worry about our laws in the state, and they turn around and they have a an app like Yellow app that's brought over here
Mm-hmm.
that is having, and you can find it in the news, guys, just YouTube. You'll find grown men who are meeting 11-year-olds at the park or different places to try to pick them up using this app. They should not be able to bring that over here. Now, if you go into and look for Yubu right now, it's going to show you a 17 plus age thing. But guess what, guys? That's not true. They may have it as that as an app for 17 plus, but your kids can register at the age of 14. So, yeah, you just got to be aware of it. This stuff scares me. It makes me angry. I want to work on stuff to try to change the laws about this. I want to create the awareness about it. I want to help protect our kids and stuff from it. So
And
that's my passion. That's my passion and stuff from it.
I was gonna say, okay. So we were talking about. All right, I'm just trying to make sure we got through all of your slides and stuff. But yeah, I agree. Uh, it's a passion of mine. I just get so mad when it comes to kids, and that's why I get so mad about Florida. Not that Libby and Abby weren't kids, but you know, when you think about the predators, I mean, there are so many things that kids are so smart, but they're so dumb at the same time.
Right. They're naive. They're naive. Yep.
Yeah, they really are, and they just don't get it sometimes. They're like, Mom, you're just crazy. Mom, you're just overprotective. Nobody's going to do, but until it happens, they don't expect it, and they don't really understand how evil people can be.
Right. Absolutely. And for me, you cannot ignore
Hmm.
that somebody using the Anthony Shots profile communicated to Libby before this happened. Somebody named Anthony Shots responded back and said, "Oh, she's supposed to meet here, but she never showed up." Isn't that an odd comment to say? You would think the person would have said, "Oh, I didn't go meet her."
Yeah.
Not she didn't show up. So that means you showed up, but she didn't show up,
Yeah.
right?
I
That's
always thought that was sus. I
right.
did.
Yeah, because so I mean, so an absolute idiot, right?
Yeah.
So you can't, no matter what, you can't ignore that. So whoever used it, I think set them up. And as much evidence and stuff that Abby and Libby left us, the voice, the picture, everything that they did, that they knew something was wrong when this guy is following them. They got that creepy vibe, right? I think women are the best at getting that vibe, right? You know when you're around somebody and just something's just doesn't feel right. Well, they knew that this guy who's following, is that creepy guy still following us? Yes.
Hmm.
And here's this person telling him to go down the hill, and here we go. He knew he was going there. He was determined to go there. He passed other teenage girls to go straight where those two were. So, he was going directly towards that bridge to meet
Hmm.
those girls, and you cannot
Right.
ignore, in my opinion, I feel like the Anthony Shots profile is connected to the Delphi. And I think that this will eventually lead and eventually be revealed that it did bust another CSAM operation by the feds
Hmm.
of other guys sharing these documents, because they don't just look at it by themselves. They have to get it from somewhere and they have to share it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's just from me looking at all of these cases and operations and busts that have happened around here and
Hmm.
across our country and across our country. So,
I guess, one of the best things people can do is educate themselves. Like, like you're such an advocate for that. And y'all, I mean, go check out Justice. It's Justice Served Daily. If you have not seen her videos and her research and all that stuff, please go check it out because, it's not a problem that's going to go away. It's only going to get worse. And it's easy to say, well, that happens in Indiana, but I live in Alabama or I live in, wherever. But the problem is the same. The names are different, but it is worldwide, yeah, the Epstein thing, but people just think that it's not going to happen to my child or my grandchild or my niece or my nephew. But the problem is it will. It can and will. I mean,
Absolutely.
somebody you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. When they walk at the house and they think they're meeting with another teenager, and then you hear all these cases on the news, guys. They sit here and some of these cases they assume they're teenage runaways too, and they go outside and they get picked up by this person they're taken. You've heard about the guy who goes all the way to Texas and picks up a girl in Texas, and then she's found out in another state.
Mm-hmm.
They do that because they're keeping it. And you know what I think is more horrific, and I don't know about you, but for me, this is more horrific. You always thought, think about this. If you have a child who's missing and was murdered, that, my God, you're like, oh my God. But can I say, and I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but I think it's even more horrific to think about a child of yours who is missing and that is kept to be abused for who
Yeah.
knows how long. For who knows how long. They keep these kids for years and years. If you don't think sex trafficking can lead into what's going on and abuse and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, go watch my CSAM Survivor
Mm-hmm.
because it started with just a guy that she lived near. Go watch my CSAM Survivor. I know you don't think that could ever happen to your kids, but oh my God, it has with this CSAM stuff, and that's what they're doing. And I think that the legacy for Abby and Libby is going to be that they busted another big level CSAM group again.
I sure hope so. I mean, nothing is worth their lives, but if that had to happen, at least let's bust everybody. And I think that's why I get frustrated at the case. I don't, whether, it was Richard Allen or not, whether he was involved, whether he was, helped, it doesn't matter. I will never believe it was one person. I believe it was a circle of people, and some of them may be trying to get information and get a conviction, get like more evidence, but the rest of them, I think they're in on some aspect, whether it's the CSAM, the trafficking, the drugs, the, whatever.
Right.
I think it's a whole situation. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it until somebody proves me different.
Yeah.
But, that's the thing. It's scary to let your kids out the door these days. It
It,
really is.
it is. It is. And the stuff that's going on, I mean, we got to let our kids be kids, and it's hard that you have to have this conversation with them, but that's where you can monitor it because if they don't have access to the internet and access to computers and stuff, okay, you don't have to worry about that. But as you get farther, you have to look at that when you give them the cell phone. It's a responsibility. I mean, honest to God, I feel like kids should just end up with the damn flip phones like it used to have, and
Yeah.
don't long because when I first gave my kids a cell phone, it was like, okay, well, you're going to be staying after for practice, and if something goes on or you don't feel well or an emergency, then you can still get a hold of mom. Well, then they
Right.
wanted but then basically it's a laptop in their hand. I mean, it's that those phones can access anything. And if you think you're going to turn off something and they can't get access to it, trust me, all their friends can tell them 6 ways from Sunday how to get
Mm-hmm.
to something that you blocked off of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because they don't think they're doing anything bad, right? They're like, oh, I got grounded from this. I'm still going to do
Yeah.
this. I'm going to still do that or whatever. But, and I told the one thing I told Mama Bear and Kelton, everybody, we were talking about the show with that CSAM survivor, and I had told them how hard I was having reading some of the stuff that happened to these kids that I block off. I don't read the specific type of thing that, did it, because I that's why I did it for her anonymously, and I told her story and I showed the court documents. But if you think listening to this is horrific, if you think me reading that is horrific, what I told Mama Bear and stuff like them, I said, think what these kids, they went through it.
Yeah.
We're just reading it. If you can't handle to hear it, they went through it. And we've got to
Hmm.
stand up for our babies. We've got to stand up for our babies.
Absolutely. I just realized I just got a notice. I'm going to throw this up here real quick. I just got a notice that we've got not very long, just a minute or two
Oh, I'm
before.
sorry.
No, I just on this app I time out at 2 hours. I never thought we'd go this long, but it's been so interesting and so informative. And
I'm a
I don't
yapper.
like
I'm
I
a
don't want to,
yapper.
I don't want you to just disappear and say, "Oh well, bye, Justice." Um, y'all, please check out her stuff and um, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for coming on
Well,
here.
thank you
And
for inviting me. I love Silky. I tell her she's like my pecan pie. She's sweet and a little nutty, so so I
definitely
love
a
her.
lot nutty. Oh, well, good. And just keep me up to date too, because I know it's hard to when you're on somebody else's when you're doing your own stream and stuff. It's hard, but let me know. What kind of
Absolutely.
what kind of stuff. If you have new information, you're always welcome to come back, Justice. I just love what you do. Love you. Love what you do. And I am gonna have to, I guess, go now
Okay.
before I turn into a
All
pumpkin
righty.
because
Yep.
it's
Thank
been
you so
too long.
much. Thanks for letting me come on. Thank you, chat, and I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll see you. I'll probably see you on CJ's.
Yeah.
All right, bye,
All
y'all.
right. Bye bye.